you have the sermon outline in the bulletin where I will be speaking from the text taken from Hebrew chapter 11. I would like us to turn to verse 1, chapter 11 of Hebrew, verse 1, and I am going to read from the New International Version, chapter 11 and verse 1. Now faith is being sure of what we have hoped for, and for certain of what we do not see. Verse 4, I'm going to jump to verse 4. By faith Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain. By faith he was commended as a righteous man when God spoke well of him, of his offerings. And by faith he still pleases. He still speaks, even though he is dead. Verse 5. By faith Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. Verse 7. By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By faith he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. Verses, I will read 8. By faith Abraham, when he was called to go to a place he would later receive as an inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Let me jump to verse 11. By faith Abraham, though he was past age, that is 100 years, and Sarah herself was barren, was enabled to become a father because he considered him faithful who made that promise. This morning I'm going to speak about faith, and Lucy mentioned about a prayer answered. Sometimes God answered in saying no. It is still answering. You know, the silence of God, there is a book called The Silence of God, and if you read that book, that book talks so much about how in many occasions God seems to be silent. We only want to hear His voice, but God didn't speak. But God still speaks because by remaining silent. You know, there is a priest in Alexandria in Egypt, and he was a monk, well respected by people, and he was in the desert. You know, he was in the cave, and he has disciples around. So one day the Alexandrian prince, the prince of that Alexandria, he said, I want to visit that man and just ask some questions. So with royal chariots, you know, with all followers, they went. And the disciples were so happy. They said, finally now this prince would meet our leader, and ever since then, the prince will support our little community here. And so, with the royal, you know, dress, he, you know, got down from the chariot and he walked into that cave. And in that chamber, there is a chamber where this monk was seated. You know, he was seated, and the Royal Highness walked inside. He did not want to sit on the ground, so he was given a chair, and he started asking questions straight away. This monk did not answer. He waited for the answer. He paraphrased, you know. He repeated the question in different forms, and he waited about 2 hours. No answer. And finally, this monk, this prince, stood up and he walked back. You know, he said, I'm very, annoyed with you. I'm so disappointed with you. And he walked back and he walked away. So the disciples came to him and they said to the monk, their head monk, we thought you would answer. We thought that you would say, welcome. we thought that you would at least answer back the questions that he asked you. You know what this monk said? If he did not listen in my silence, he will not understand even if I speak. If he did not listen in my silence and get the message, how proud he is. Huh? How proud. I'm not boasting. He comes to me to seek advice, but he is not ready to listen. So in my silence, I respond back. And I think sometimes God responds back in His silence, isn't it?
Yes.
And God never failed to answer. He answers you back in many, many occasions. Why your business failed? He answers you. Why you are sick? He answers you. Why you have some disturbing news? He answers you in different ways. And sometimes I think God pulls us back. You know, that's why John Bunyan, the Pilgrim Progress writer, says that, God, I seem to be so dry in my spirit. You know, when everything is doing so well, business is going on, children are healthy, you know, everything successful, he said, I seem to be doing so well, but my spirit is dry. Give me some problem. Then I will only cling to you again. Isn't it?
That's true.
Only when you will face certain problem, you just cling and say, without you, God, I cannot move even and, you know, face my future. And I think God sends different lessons in our life. And this morning, if you look at Hebrew chapter 11, verse 1 actually define or give the definition of faith. Faith is something that you hope for. Okay, it says that you hope for, it is not yet here, you still hope, and being certain that it is there. Certain that God is there, heaven is there, hell is there, blessing is there, health is there. And being certain that this is my future. That is faith. If you have come to this church this morning without that faith, we want you, or I want you to go back with that faith. Faith to say, God, I found this faith that is trusting in you, relying on you, rolling on you. Actually, the definition of faith says that you can roll over. You can roll over on God. You can trust and sit on the chair and being so comfortable on the chair. And how much more we can trust God and sit on Him, isn't it? There is a beautiful song that says, my brothers and my sisters, you know, if you have a problem, that song says that, if you have a problem, you know, give to God whose shoulder is big enough to carry the universe, can carry your problem, isn't it? Yes. Sometimes you carry your problem and didn't trust the shoulder of God who carries the whole universe. Are you carrying yourself? I think many of us do. But this morning, faith is being sure, being certain. It is not yet here. It can be here if you have faith, but it is still in the process. And that is what faith is all about. I would like to look at quickly 5 areas, you know, these 5 giants of faith. And this morning, the first one comes, faith that speaks. Faith that is still speaking. That is in verse 4. It's about the life of Abel. The Bible says that Abel and Cain, you know, this is a beautiful picture. You know, I was so thrilled to read one book that talks about the profession of Abel and the profession of Cain. Now, if you look at the profession of Cain, Cain was an agriculture man. You know, he tilled the land, he cultivated the land, but Abel was in animal husbandry. If not, he looks after the cattle. Now,